Welcome everyone to the Row by Row Garden Show, the best dadgum gardening show on the radio and internet as well. Thank you for joining us this evening. We got a good show today. We got Jeremy Kichler here. Jeremy, welcome.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. So Jeremy is our local county agent, but he is with UGA Extension. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about Jeremy.
I'm the county extension agent here in Colquitt County. I represent the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension. I've been a county agent for 21 years.
21 years.
Yes.
You're telling your age a little bit there, aren't you?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, turning a little gray.
Yeah.
But I'm having fun. It's a great job. Just giving research-based information to the people, from commercial farmers to gardeners to homeowners. Just trying to give them that non-biased information.
So you got your hands full here in Colquitt County, because Colquitt County is, if it's not the largest agricultural county in the state, it's right there at the top, isn't it?
Yes, so every year we do a farm gate survey, and Colquitt County is either 1 or 2.
Right.
Most of the time, number 1 in farm gate value in the state. Very diverse.
Right.
You know, so a lot of vegetable production, cotton, peanut production. So it's challenging, but it also makes it so much fun.
And produce as well.
That's
now,
right.
one time back in the day, they used to say this, I don't know if it's still true or not, said we grew more cabbage in this county than any other cabbage west of the Mississippi. Oh, excuse me, east of the Mississippi. Is that still true, or do you know?
I know we're number 1 in Georgia.
Okay. We grow a lot of cabbage.
Yes, we do.
Yep. So, where you hail from?
I am originally from a little town called Elbert, Alabama.
Alabama.
Yes, I'm an Auburn graduate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you made your way to Georgia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I
You
graduated.
had to get out of Alabama, didn't you?
Well, yeah, we got to recruit good people. You know, even good people come from Alabama. But I've been a county agent, you know, from when I graduated Auburn. So came over here, met my wife, and been in Colquitt County since 2014.
So your wife's a Georgia girl.
Yes.
Whew. It's only saving grace you got there.
Yes, that's right.
So, you know, we got somebody we know in common.
That's right.
So you have got what I classify as a big, ugly brother. But he's actually a younger brother, but you'll agree with me that he is a big, ugly brother.
Yeah.
But you've got a brother, his name is Corey. And I become good friends with Corey, and I can call him Big Ugly because he's a good friend of mine. But Corey works for the USDA, and he develops equipment for walk-behind tractors. And I got to know Corey at a lot of the trade shows we went to, and just become good friends of ours. And then we found out later that y'all were brothers, but you're his older brother.
Yeah, so in our family, I'm the oldest, and I have a middle brother named Ben who farms in Baldwin County. And then Corey works for USDA ARS in Auburn, working with organic production systems and cover crops, and doing a great job.
Evidently, you got pushed away from the table a little bit, or something happened, because he made a big old boy.
Yes, so
Is your middle brother that big?
he's a little bit shorter.
Oh, is he? Yeah, I don't know. Corey's what, 6'5" or so?
He's 6'2".
Oh, he's a little bit taller than that, isn't he? He's a pretty good sized boy. Anyway, Corey also is a dealer for BCS tillers as well as Grillo tillers. And I tell you what, we might want to put his phone number up. What do you say? We put his phone number up. Well, people, if you're interested in a BCS tiller or Grillo tiller and you live in Alabama or the southeastern United States, you may want to contact Corey. He could hook you up. How about that? We'll shoot his information up there.
Sounds like a plan.
Corey's a good guy, so he'd be glad to help you there, answer all your questions. He's got a vast knowledge of walk-behind tractors. That's basically what he does. So anyway, we'll get a little shout out to Corey there. All right, so let's move into our product of the week. And this is going to be something I'm going to let you help me with here, because I think you're familiar with it, probably as much or more so than I am. But it's a new product for us, and it is called Vegetable and Organic Weeder. Now, this is one of the only pre-emergent herbicides available out there for the home vegetable gardener. And the active ingredient is what we used to call Treflan. Yep. This is a pretty old chemistry right here that's been around for a long time. Now let's tell people a little bit about it and the way it works. Now this is what I tell people with vegetable gardening. Now this will also work in your flower beds as well, but we're going to talk specifically vegetable gardening today. If you can control your weeds without a herbicide, by all means do it. If you're in a situation where you cannot control them mechanically and they're getting away from you, then you do have this option right here you can use to help you with your weed pressure in your vegetable garden.
So trifluralin is a root inhibitor. It has no post-emerge activity.
Right.
So if you already have weeds that are up, it's not going to help you.
Right.
And you can incorporate it, or you can activate it by timely rainfall.
Right. Or irrigation.
Yes, or irrigation. Yeah. So you need about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of rain or irrigation to activate, trifluralin. Small seeded grasses or broadleaves like pigweed, Texas panikin, crabgrass.
Yep.
Really
your normal grasses and weeds that you have so much problem with in a vegetable garden. It will control those. Now it doesn't do anything for nutgrass.
No. So.
But the rest of them, it works pretty good on your common weeds. Now the way you would use this is it's not ideal, and you can't use it on everything the same way. You have to be careful on monocots, which is corn. Yes. You can't use it on corn. What you can use it on is everything else, but you may have to use it in a little different way. Your cucurbits, which is your pumpkins, your cucumbers, and all those kind of things, the plants have to be established before you can't do pre-plant on those.
Right.
You have to let that plant come up and maybe let it get 5 or 6 inches high. Let it get established. Then you can go over the top with the treflan. You can also spray your middles. Water it in immediately if you don't have a rain there. Water it in immediately. I think you've got 8 hours to water this right here in. And you want to get it off from that plant. So when you spray, you can get it on top of the plant. Get it on the plant, it's okay. But you do want to wash it in within 8 hours. And activate it.
And then, some vegetables such as okra, you can use it as a pre-emerge application.
Peas and beans.
Yes.
Yep. So peas and beans, you can actually incorporate, if you wanted to, you could spray it and till it into the soil, then plant.
Be sure to just scratch it in, maybe 1 to 2 inches.
Yeah, well, you maybe want to rake it in. Is that the best way to
rake it in? You just don't want to incorporate it too deep because you bury the herbicide.
Right. If you have one of those rotary hairs that goes behind a BCS or Grillo, you could probably scratch it in that way. Those things go real, not very deep. It's a good product, old product. I believe the half-life on this is 180 something days. You're probably looking at 3 to 4 months worth of control with it, at best.
At best.
It will get you out of when that plant is small till it gets established. It'll get you into that what we call the crunch period there, where your weeds normally get away from you. It will help you get you out of that spot. You don't really have to worry about this carrying over to the next crop because it's going to be gone by then.
So it's good for getting that crop established, and that's when weed competition is at, impacts yields the most.
Right. So there you have it, folks. Vegetable and ornamental weeder, and also people's got flower beds. Works wonderful in flower beds. You just have to wet it in within 8 hours. That's the main thing. You remember those surfland? They tell me surfland is gone.
That's
On
right.
surfland, we had 21 days to get it watered in. But I think surfland is gone, no more.
That's what I'm hearing, and then there's also pendimethalin now.
Pendimethalin, yep.
It's pretty similar.
Yep, pendimethalin, we call those the old yellers because they,
prowl.
Yep, pendimethalin has a terrible problem with staining. I don't think this one has as much problem with staining as the prowl does.
I remember the old timers used to have
Yellow
fingers.
Yep, yellow boots and everything else. No old pendimethalin. So, do you know exactly how this works, the mode of action? Because this always confuses me.
It's a group 3.
Okay, so when the weed seed actually puts out that finger root, that's when it gets it, right? Okay, so pre-emergence can be somewhat of a misnomer because we're actually thinking it's keeping that seed from germinating. But it actually is letting it germinate a little bit, then it kills the weed seed, right?
So, yes.
Yeah, and I've always struggled with that a little bit, but when that little root hair comes out of that weed seed, bam, that's when it gets it. And if you've ever noticed where you had crop damage from one of these where it was over applied, those roots kind of get stubby a little bit, stubbed out, because you can see when they get that. I may be getting
You'll see that. Well, you see that with corn. So if you plant, if you plant corn or a grass crop, you'll get that stubby root type of symptomology, and that's
damage. That's herbicide damage.
That's
you can look at that. We may be getting a little too deep here, but it's okay. But you can look at that root where it run into that chemical, and it'll just put like a little stubbiness on that root there, and you can tell that you got. That's a surefire way to tell you got herbicide damage a lot of times. So, all right, we'll move right along. How about that? That was good though. Let's talk about the poor folks down in the hurricane. The hurricane run up in Mississippi and Louisiana pretty bad. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the people that were affected down there. We got a lot of customers. Linda Sanchez, we worry about them down there. They're down there on the coast. We hadn't heard from them. We hope everything is good. I did talk to Wes over at Naked Hog. He's in middle Louisiana. Wes said he had a lot of trees down. They didn't have any power, but I talked to him last night. He said they was doing fine. So Mississippi also got hit pretty hard. So our thoughts and prayers are out to them folks down there. Hope that it's not as bad as we have heard and everything. Everybody fared well on that. But man, they got some rain and some wind down there.
And they didn't need it.
That's right. And we have had a lot of rain here. Have you kept up with it?
Right before I come here, I looked at the the University of Georgia has a weather network, and I was looking at the expo. After the last 30 days, 20 days, we received at least one rain event.
Yeah, my gardening is struggling a little bit now. I got fall tomatoes in, and I'm having some leaf spot problems on them. A lot of people have had some Pythium issues with their vegetable garden, just simply rotting off. But it's just one of those things. It's a challenging time right now to be growing with all this right now. We've seen a lot of disease pressure.
Yes, so disease pressures in vegetables and also row crops too. So it's been.
Everybody's sharing love having disease problems right now.
It seems like we either go to extreme drought, extreme, rainfall, and it's.
It's what we have to deal with.
That's right.
All right, folks, what we're going to do today, we got Jeremy in the house, and we're going to do a deep dive into basic soil sampling. I think this is a subject a lot of people struggle with, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know why. I always preach, you got to do soil samples. If there's not but one thing you do when you start your vegetable garden, do a soil sample. It is so important, and it takes just a little bit of time, but it will make a difference whether you're successful or not if you've got something out of whack. I see so many times somebody's got a pH problem and they don't know they got a pH problem. And that's one of the easiest things to adjust is pH.
Yes, so with a soil test, contact your local extension agent. We got all the bags. If you need a probe, we can loan you a probe, so we have all the resources here to help you, accomplish a soil sample, which gives you so much information needed to grow that successful garden.
A basic soil sample. Let's show them a bag. You got a bag here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here it is right here.
Okay, this is the UGA basic soil sample bag. Now, here in Georgia, you can pick these bags up at any
extension office.
I'm assuming most other states have extension as well, and you can pick those up there as well. Now, if you are somewhere else, you could possibly contact a private lab and get you a soil sample if you're in an area that doesn't have an extension office or doesn't offer this service. I'm not sure everybody in the United States offers it.
That's right. Most extension offices, services,
especially in agriculture areas. But I know the UGA does a wonderful job with this right here, and they offer this right here, and you would pick this bag up and you would go take your soil sample. You fill this information out on the bag there.
Your name, phone number, please fill it up to the line. Sometimes we get samples that don't have enough soil.
Follow the directions, folks.
Yes,
it's easy as that.
Yes, so, and sampling's everything. Sampling method is everything when it comes to the information on that soil test report is just as good as the sample that you take.
Right. So let's talk about with a soil sample. How many samples per area?
So I would say probably get a good representative sample of the area that you're sampling. Look at soil type, look at texture, but usually 15 to 20 cores.
Okay, let's say I got a half acre garden. That's a big garden. But if I got a half acre garden, how many soil samples do I need to take?
So if the soil is fairly consistent, you can probably get by with one.
Okay.
Now, if you have a lot of variation, you may want to take it based off soil type.
Okay. Okay, I didn't realize that. Another thing you can do, I've done this in the past, if you got an area in your garden that's not performing well, and you got another area in your garden that is performing well, you always take a sample of those two areas, label one of them good, one of them bad, and compare and see if you got something out of balance there that you can pick up on that you can apply and make it all even. That's a good one there. I used to put good, G for good, and B for bad on my soil. We'll talk about the labeling the soil sample. And that way it was a pretty obvious, just to compare the two. So I always thought that was interesting. So we're going to talk about the test you get back right here. Now the first thing you want to do is to be able to take a good soil sample. And to take a good soil sample, you can do it two different ways. You can use a soil probe. Now do y'all loan these out or do you have to own one of them?
I have a couple at the office.
Yep.
So, they can check it out.
Now this is the long one. They make them shorter than this as well. I don't know if we can get all this in the camera.
So I also have another one that's probably a couple of feet long.
For short people.
Yes, for short people. That's right.
And we have the long one here with the foot peg on there to get down those hard soils. Now I'm going to give everybody a little bit of tidbit information. If you don't have one of these, this is the way you can get by. So you can take your shovel and go down. You need a good shovel. Go all the way down and kind of pitch your soil back and leave your opening there. And then go back about an inch and go back down and push it out and get a profile of that soil. Now this is not ideal, but this will work and get you a profile of that soil. And you kind of have to get in there and pick it out. It may take you a trial or something like that and get in there and dig it out. But you don't want to get a top layer, you don't want to get a bottom layer. You want to get that layer all the way down of what, about 8 inches?
So with gardens, 6, 8 inches.
6 to 8 inches.
You want to get in the root zone.
Yeah.
So with lawn, if you're doing one in your lawn also, maybe 4 inches.
Yep.
Orchards, maybe, 8 to 10 inches. So it just depends on how deep rooted that crop is.
So you want to take your bucket and you want to go throughout this area that you want to sample. And you said get 12 to 14 representative probes. Okay, so get 12 to 14 samples and put in that bucket and then mix it all up.
Use a plastic bucket.
Use a plastic bucket. The reason is because galvanized buckets have what in them?
Zinc.
Zinc, and it's going to throw you zinc reading way off. I forgot about that. That's old school stuff there. Use a plastic bucket there and mix it all up and then get you a sample out to put in your bag, correct?
Yeah, and fill up to the line.
Yep.
So make sure we have enough soil to test. And then you bring it back to the extension office.
One thing is you want to put the correct crop on there. So down at the bottom right here, you got a place where you put a crop on. It's important that you want to put the specific crop on there because recommendations are different for different crops. So if you got blueberries, you want to put blueberries. If you're doing general vegetable garden, you would put general vegetable garden, right?
Yes, but if you wanted to change it, basically when we talk about the soil sample, we get the soil test level nutrients back, the levels, we can actually put in a different crop code.
With the same sample?
With the same sample, yep.
But you do get different recommendations?
Yes, definitely. Okay. Yes, sir.
All right, and let's see if there's anything we're missing there. Sample ID.
Sample.
So sample ID, this is where I use it if I got a good and bad spot in there. So you always want to put sample ID, some kind of representation there where you know where that sample come from. Initial it or whatever, put 1, put B. I use good for good and B for bad if I got a bad spot there. When the sample comes back there, that's what's going to correlate to that report. So always make sure that you understand what it's going back to. So there we have that. Let's get in to what kind of reports you're going to get back. Now, back in the day, we used to have to put our addresses on there. But now with email, you can get your reports emailed back to you.
And that increases response time, getting that information back in a timely manner.
Which is great. Because used to, it would take several days to get it back, where response time now is a lot less.
It takes about a week,
a
a week to 10 days, to get the results back to the office, and then we can email it to you.
All right, so this is what your soil sample looks like when it comes back. Let's see here. This one is home vegetable garden. Now, this is from the UGA. So this is what you will get back. If you'll notice on there, you do not get a nitrogen reading.
That's right.
So we get on the basic soil sample is how much?
$6 plus a little bit of postage.
$6 plus a little bit of postage. You can do some additional things with that are additional cost.
Yes, so you can get, things like organic matter. You can get all kinds of stuff. I'll have to look at but with a traditional soil sample, you're getting a soil test level of phosphorus, potassium, calcium, zinc, magnesium, and most important, soil pH.
Yep. All right, so when you get back, you're going to be seeing this right here. And it's going to be showing your crop up here, what you put in there, the home vegetable garden. And this is sample number 1, you see there. And now that's going to tie back, that sample number 1, to the sample ID that you put on the bag there. So you want to know what that is. If you're doing more than one soil sample, you want to know which one it is when you start looking at it. Now the first thing I always look at is soil pH. Now on this particular one, it's showing 6.0 for a home vegetable garden. Now I normally like for my home vegetable garden to be somewhere around 6.5, but I think that the correct range or a acceptable range would be anywhere from 6 to 7.
6 to 6.5, I like. But once you get above 6.3, you tie up some of these micro elements and stuff like that. So if you look at this soil sample, we're in pretty good shape. Everything is about, is over that line that says nutrients, not needed.
Right. On the pH, if you need to adjust the pH, you would do that with lime. Now, I would recommend using a pelletized lime because if you use the agricultural lime, it's very powdery, it's very hard to apply. So you can buy you can buy pelletized lime at your big box stores or your garden center there, and it normally comes in around 20, 30 pound, maybe a 40 pound bag, but it being granulated, it's a lot easier to apply. You can put that with a regular fertilizer spreader.
Yes, but also too, please sample, a couple months ahead of time. Try to do that because it takes a little time for that lime to react and adjust that pH up.
Normally, we've always said about 3 months to react, right?
Yes.
So if you need to adjust pH up, you want to do it with granulated lime. Normally speaking, and I'm going to say normally speaking here, you do a ton to the acre per point to raise it. Now that relates back down to about 220 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Have I got my math right there?
I think so.
So you would use 220 pounds per 1,000 square feet to raise it a point. So if you was wanting to go from 5.0 to 6.0, you would use 220 pounds on that 1,000 square feet. Now here's the kicker, folks. Do not apply lime if you do not need it, or if your neighbor told you you needed lime and you didn't do a pH. And the reason for that is we can raise the pH pretty easily, but it is almost impossible to lower that pH. Now it is, you can work with it some, but it is a lot harder to lower that pH than it is to raise that pH. So many times we have heard, well, my neighbor said I needed to apply some lime. Apply the lime, and they shot their pH up around 8. Now they're having major problems in the garden because it's showing micro and nutrient deficiencies, and they don't know what to do about it. Well, the only thing you can really do about that is apply elemental sulfur, and it's a slow process to bring it down.
And also, some of these nitrogen forms are acidic, like ammonium nitrate or
sulfate. Any of those. Anything that's got sulfur in it will help bring, magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt will help bring it down. Aluminum sulfate, any of those will help bring it down. But it is a slow, painful process. So the takeaway here is know exactly what your pH is before you apply anything. Have a plan. Understand what you're trying to do, and do not depend on your know-it-all brother-in-law or your neighbor to tell you what you need to do. All right, since we got the pH out of the way, let's move on to phosphorus and potassium. Now these are one of the 3 major elements that you need in your soil that you have to be successful garden. And we see here that this one says it's off the chart with phosphorus.
So it's hard to bring down phosphorus.
It is. And then we see this, where we live, we see this a lot. We see very high phosphorus. Just about every soil sample that you take within our county will show a high phosphorus, a high calcium, and high magnesium. But with the high phosphorus there, that is a major element for growing corn. Corn loves phosphorus. We see here that we're really loaded with it. You see there, let me see if I can show everybody. You see right there, we're way off the chart with it. So what would you do about that if you have a high phosphorus?
You can come in deep turn.
You can deep turn.
You know, that would get the phosphorus down lower. Also, too, you can select a fertilizer has a lower phosphorus.
So you would want to use something like a 15015,
Yes.
something that's low with that middle number. Now the third thing you can do is what we used to call farming it off. So you could grow crops that need a lot of phosphorus, such as corn there, and it would help take up some of this phosphorus and maybe lower a little bit in the soil color eventually. So when you see a very high phosphorus on your soil sample, you know you got good corn growing.
So you can grow sweet corn.
You grow sweet corn. Yeah, or some good grinding field corn. Make some grits and cornmeal out of it. How about that?
But in this situation here, for a vegetable garden, we would recommend 15015 or at side dress time or something.
Stay away from your middle number and use up what you got. All right. If you need to add phosphorus, just the opposite. You want to make sure that your middle number in your fertilizer is fairly high. Now, phosphorus is one of those things that is not soil leachable. So once it's there, it stays there unless you use it up.
Right. So if soil sample levels are very high, then you have a low percentage or a low chance of getting an economic response from that nutrient being applied. So
Expand on that just a minute.
So if you have a soil, like right here, we have 291, pounds. That's actually an index number.
Right.
So if it's very high, then if you put out phosphorus in this situation here,
You're wasting your money.
Exactly.
Yep. All right, so if you do need to raise it, if you're showing in your soil sample you need the phosphorus, just make sure that you apply that with your fertilizer, keep it in mind, that middle number there, that's where your phosphorus is at. Moving to potassium. You see here, we're okay on potassium, but it's not great. It's in a good range there.
But we could probably use more.
But we could probably use more because a lot of your crops love potassium. Now, potassium is kind of in between phosphorus and nitrogen. It is a little bit soluble, so it can be leached out with massive amounts of rain, where phosphorus cannot be. But it can be, we can apply it, and the crops need it a lot of times. So you really want to pay attention to that potassium. Now, what does potassium do for the plant?
Helps you with overall health.
Root development. So it's very important that you got potassium there, that you know where it's at. It's something you will probably want to pay more attention to over a longer period of time than maybe phosphorus, because it's going to move a little bit more than phosphorus would. Would you say from year to year on soil sample?
Potassium, well, if for example, we can take off potassium, in the vegetables, and also, for example, like hay fields and stuff.
Right.
You take off a lot of potassium.
Farm it off. Yep.
Farm it off. Yeah, farm it off.
All right, so there you have it. If you need to add potassium, you can do that with the last number you're in. You're like your 10, 10, 10. That last number is potassium. You can add it back that way. Moving on, and I'm gonna put these two together: calcium and magnesium. So calcium and magnesium is two of the most misunderstood elements in the soil, because in the vegetable world I'm talking about. Because if you go on these forums, you watch people get confused with this, especially with blossom end rot. But calcium is the element that builds the cell thickness in your bell peppers and things like that, and that prevents blossom end rot. Magnesium, on the other hand, a lot of people think magnesium has something to do with blossom end rot, but it really don't. And these two right here, if you get them out of balance, can compete with one another. Is that correct? Now, we're in good shape here on calcium and magnesium there. But if I was growing a vegetable garden, I might still consider adding a little bit at bloom time to make sure that calcium did get moved.
So you can actually put out gypsum.
Yep.
If you do not need an adjustment in the soil pH.
Right.
If your magnesium's high, you need a adjustment with the soil pH, you can go with calcitic lime. If you need magnesium, you can go with dolomite.
Right. Or if you need just magnesium, you can go with magnesium sulfate.
Yes.
So you can do that. Calcium and magnesium or work against one another. Both of them have the same cationic, the same charge.
That's right.
So
Positive.
if you put too much magnesium out there, then you're going to displace calcium, and vice versa. If you put too much calcium out there, you can displace magnesium.
And it also calcium can compete with potassium.
Right.
You know, we run into that with peanut production also. So if you're growing green peanuts, you may want to take a Peckin's zone sample.
Yep. So those are important, but they're very they react the same. But you really need to make sure that you got a balance here, and that's the key to that is having a good balance and not misplacing one with the other. Magnesium has nothing to do with blossom end rot. We see it all the time. People talk about magnesium and blossom end rot. Calcium does, but it gets, and we've done shows on blossom end rot. It really gets complicated, but calcium is the one, as far as the soil sample, you want to pay attention to there on blossom end rot. Now zinc is important, especially with pecan trees here in the South.
Pecans, corn. But you know, pH has an effect on the availability of zinc too. So I think the higher zinc level you have in the soil test index number that you have, the higher pH you need it to be.
Right. pH can have an effect on just about everything. That's the reason I always think you got to address that first and then go down through there and start addressing everything else. Zinc is important, maybe not to the point some of these others are, but it is important. And then we got other things that are to pay attention to that is not necessarily shown on the soil sample, the standard soil sample, and that would be boron, that would be copper, manganese, iron, and we already mentioned zinc. Those are ones that you do not measure on a regular soil sample, is that correct? But they are important. And most time you can address that with a micronutrient package applied to your vegetable garden or to whatever. All right, so when you get this soil sample right here, and when you get it back, let's see if we got one. We got one right here. We got one somewhere we can share what the recommendations looks like. So we'll see if we can find it here. I hope everybody likes our cards. That's not it.
So we have...
Hold that right there and see if I can find it. Here it is. Okay, so this one here shows the recommendations you see there, and we're going to talk about that right there. Shows you recommend. When you get this bag, it's going to show you, according to what crop you put on there, the recommendation. And like you said earlier, I didn't realize you can change that crop once it gets back to the county agent level.
Yes, so there are crop codes, and you can, as long as it's a Melic 1 extraction method, which is the university, and a lot of private labs, have the same, extraction method, we can adjust our recommendations based off the crop that is produced. So
it makes it pretty easy the way the university does it. They give you recommendations and tell you exactly what to do there. They tell you what to do on your pH if you need to adjust that. Now we give you a little bit more information there about using the pelletized, or is easier to apply. But it also gives you things to do as far as fertility to address your soil sample. This particular one is showing to use a 15015 or a 14014 because we got a high phosphorus level for your general garden there. Now there is some different stuff here. If I'm growing onions, I'd want to use a lot of ammonium sulfate because onions love sulfur. So this gives you a general guideline what you need to do, but you can always kind of tweak it around just a little bit.
Yeah, every farm's different.
Yeah, especially the crops too, according to what you're trying to grow. But I hope maybe this is help people out to understand the importance, and we can't drill this home enough, the importance of a soil sample, especially that pH. And I know people get tired of preaching that, but I preach it all the time. I have seen it over and over again. People make the mistake of adjusting that pH when it didn't need to be, or not knowing what their pH was. All right. Georgia, county agents, you can get your soil samples done there, and we're assuming you can get it done everywhere else. If some of you people out there are in a state that didn't offer that, put a line in the comments below and let us know what states do not offer that service there. $6 plus a little bit of postage, you said?
It provides a lot of great information.
It does, yep. All right, so as always, we do a little corny joke of the week. How about that?
Yes, sir.
I got one for you here. So why did the potatoes argue?
I have no clue.
They could not see eye to eye. There you have it, folks. You can use that one at your church this weekend, use it at your civic group, or at your family dinner table, either which one. Feel free to use our corny joke of the week. And Dale Smalley sent that one in to us, so we're going to send Dale a little free gift out for giving us that corny joke of the week. It's a pretty good one, wasn't it?
I like it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, folks, we hope it helped you today understand soil samples. We tried to bring it back and do a basic soil sample testing here. And Jeremy, great to have you. We have to have you back again.
I would love to come back.
You got a wealth of information. So your specialty is actually row crops, right? Or
So
not?
here in Colquitt County, I'm responsible for row crop, extension row crop programming, but I also do homeowners and.
That's the thing about county agents. You have to kind of be an expert in everything.
Yes, county agent's probably one of the most, fun jobs in the world. You never know what's going to happen.
You get some weird ones, I'm sure, don't
Yes,
you?
I do.
We're going to leave it alone, ain't we? Thank you for having us. Yep, thank you for being here. Yep.
Thanks for the invite.
All right, well, there you go, folks. Now it's time to get out in that dark garden. Pull that soil sample while, on soil samples, pull it while there's nothing growing out there. You kind of got that lax period when nothing's going on. Now's the ideal time to get there and pull that soil sample, get it sent in, make adjustments to it way before spring gets here. Now's the time to get out there and get dirty.